We want to unpack it all now with two people very familiar with everything that is happening on the ground right now in Israel, in Gaza. Moshe Lavi will join us in just a few minutes. He is a former IDF captain and a relative of one of the Israeli hostages still being held by Hamas. But first, I want to bring in Tal Heinrich. She is the spokesperson for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Tal, first of all, you saw that story. The world wants to know what happened to that 6-year-old Palestinian girl. Do you have any information as to what might have happened?
Thank you for having me on tonight, Dell. Unfortunately, I don't have any information for you. We will have to ask the IDF and wait for an investigation. They will look into the details, and once we have something to announce, we will, of course, announce that. You see, but your report was very accurate when it said that when your reporter mentioned that they don't know where the fire was coming from. And in many incidents throughout this war, we know that the fire, in fact, on Palestinian civilians came from Hamas. If it was missiles that fell short, thousands of missiles that fell short inside the Gaza Strip, for instance. We do not target civilians. We only target terrorists and terror infrastructure. Our fight is not with the people of Gaza, and every civilian loss of life is a terrible, awful tragedy of a war that Israel didn't start and didn't want.
Tal, if it was Israel, what happens next?
Well, I think you know the answer. When there's a mistake made on our behalf or anything of this kind, we take responsibility. We told the world and the parents of hostages about a terrible incident in which a rescue operation was unsuccessful, unlike 24 hours ago. So. We surely take responsibility when we do something wrong. Right now, that is not the case.
Tal, the U.S. goal is to free all of the hostages in Gaza, so is Israel's. But the U.S. also wants to limit civilian casualties, which by any account has been staggering. Which is more important to Israel? And I have to ask the question this way: protecting civilians or eliminating Hamas? And can there actually be room for both?
Well, we see eye to eye with the administration on this. We all want the same things at the end of the day. We want to bring all hostages home, to eliminate the Hamas terrorist regime, and to make sure that Gaza will never, ever pose a terror threat to us again. And while we're doing that, we want to minimize the civilian casualties and civilian suffering on the Palestinian side, even though Hamas wants to do exactly the opposite. Their strategy is to try to maximize the civilian suffering and civilian casualty in Gaza. They assume that Israel will take the fire for that, and that we will leave them alone, and that will give them some kind of immunity. Now, to your question, these goals are not contradictory. We can work on all of the goals that I just stated at the same time.
I guess the question then would be, what is the acceptable level of casualties on the other side? We know that 2 Israeli hostages were freed. But we also know that as many as 67, some say 100 people, civilians, were killed in that effort to free those hostages. What is the acceptable level of casualties? And can we put a number on it? And should we put a number on it?
So first, these are Hamas numbers, and they should be taken with a grain of salt. I have no information about civilian casualties, but I can tell you that we know for sure that during this successful rescue operation of the hostages, scores of terrorists on the Palestinian side of Hamas terrorists were eliminated, in fact. Now, you're asking me a question about proportionality, Dell, and it's important to mention here that proportionality in armed conflict is not tit for tat. It's doing what it takes to achieve a legitimate military target, military goal. And the goal of freeing our hostages, the goal of eliminating the terrorist regime who took them away from their families and butchered their entire communities and raped them, is the most justified, the most legitimate goal out there. And also, when you make the calculation before you go and carry out an operation of this kind in Gaza, for example, you also have to bring into account the counterfactual here. What is the cost of leaving Hamas in power? 16 more years of round after round of conflict, hundreds of more missiles on Israeli communities, another October 7th massacre.
Everybody in Washington, Tal, understands that. I think the question then becomes, how far is too far? I want you to listen to what President Biden had to say today, because he's once again putting pressure on your boss, the Israeli Prime Minister, to get those 1.4 million civilians out of Rafah before Israel launches another offensive. Take a listen.
Not only do we pray for peace, we're actively working for peace, security, and dignity for both the Palestinian people and the Israeli people. And I'm working on this day and night with the king and others in the region to find the means to bring all these hostages home, to ease the humanitarian crisis, and to end the terror threat, and to bring peace to Gaza and Israel, enduring peace with the two-state solution for two peoples.
As you know, there are growing tensions between Washington and Jerusalem, especially on the issue of a two-state solution. You just heard the president say that your boss, the Israeli Prime Minister, says that is off the table. So how do you reach a consensus on what needs to be done moving forward when even the allies seem to be disagreeing on what the solution might be?
First, we don't have to agree on every small details with our allies. We take advice from allies. We consult with allies. We share concerns with allies. And the United States, of course, is our best friend. On the issue of the two-state solution, you know, it is a slogan. It means different things to different people. And President Biden also said just a few weeks ago, that there are different types of a two-state solution. And we simply say no to the type, which means that it will peril Israel's security. There can be no peace that puts the state of Israel, the one Jewish state in the world, in jeopardy.
Tal Heinrich, spokesperson for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Tal, as always, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
You got it.